and welcome to today's training class. We're looking at field level security and mandatory fields within Sage CRM. So we're looking at how Sage CRM allows administrators to control field visibility, edit rights, and the concept of a field being a required field or a mandatory field. And so this session is going to explain both the concept and the practical steps required to configure field level security and required fields. It is, of course, continuing within the series of lessons that make up this system administration class, looking specifically at security administration within Sage CRM, and we are now on our 8th lesson. So we are reaching, if you like, the end point where we've been looking at and thinking about security in terms of the company teams, the idea of territory structures, security profiles, security policies, and now we're going to see how else we can fine-tune the idea of security with at field level access. So it says the aim of this lesson is to look at how you can use field level security features to control user access to data and set field properties. So by the end of this session, you will be able to explain what field level security is, how you could make sure a field is a required field or a mandatory field, how you go about configuring different types of field security rules, and understand as well how the field level security interacts with security profiles, security territories, and teams as well. So we'll be able to get a sense as well how you'd go about testing and validating your configuration as well. So it's not just about showing you where to tick the boxes. It is going to be about a way in which field level behavior can be affecting not just the entry screens, but the search screens, reports, dashboards, and actually the whole of data integrity within Sage CRM at the level of the individual field. Let's step back and consider security in total. There's a big picture that I want us to understand, and that is that over the last few lessons, we've been looking at security territories, security profiles, field level security, or rather today is that. So if we think about what a user can see and what a user can access and what a user can edit, first of all, we have this idea of security territories, which determines the rows of data that an individual can see. Based on your security territory, you will be able to see and have certain data filtered out of your access. Security profiles are to do with what you can then do with that data. So if you are in a particular territory, you can only see information within, say, the US and Canada. You can't see information that is in Europe or in APAC, for example. But if you have a security profile that grants you access to companies, persons, and opportunities, but not to cases, then you can only see the data in US and Canada for those three entities. So, and we can fine tune the idea of the profile so that you can have different insert, edit, and delete rights in addition to viewing within that security territory. So security territories determine which rows that you have access to. The security profile determines the actions that you can take on those rows within the particular entities. When we come on to the field level security, we're now adding a granularity to security that says, but this data is something that we need. This individual item of data within a row or a field cannot be seen or accessed or edited by a particular person or can only be accessed by a particular team or a particular security profile. And very similarly to the concept of mandatory fields, we can set the granularity of the rule so that a field becomes required at the level of the field definition, so you don't then have to make sure it is mandatory at the level of the screen or where it's used. So territories control the concept of record visibility, the profiles control the actions that we want to take, like insert, update, and delete, but field level security works underneath everything. It controls access to the individual fields, and we're going to see that it will have priority over the other forms of security access at the individual field level. So that's the idea of the big picture, if you like, of them all fitting together. But if we think about what it is in terms of field level security, it's all about hiding fields from specific users, allowing read-only access for certain groups of people, or we might want to say a particular security profile, and only a particular security profile can read and write the data. We can control its nature of requirement, and the important thing, because it's at the level of the field, it applies wherever the field appears. And if you were to remove visibility or read access from a particular field for a user, that would affect that user's experience of that field in every single screen with inside Sage CRM, with inside search results, with inside reports, everywhere basically that user sees it. And so it's nothing to do with an individual screen. It is to do with that field or item of data, which is then surfaced out across the whole of Sage CRM. And consider a particular field. Now, it might be within, say, an integrated system where you have account information being brought in, and you've got a field like credit limit, or you've got a field like aggregated revenue inside the company level screen. You might want the sales team to be able to view and edit information about the revenue, or to have the sales team to be able to maintain the credit limit that's allowed, or that might actually only be the finance team that does it. But the support team may not even be able to see that revenue field. On the flip side is that the support team might be able to access the information that is to do with the customer's own service level agreements. The sales team might be able to view it, but the support team are the only team that should be able to make changes. And we have this need within a system because not all information is relevant to all teams, and some information may have some more sensitivity, so that you want to concentrate on only the right people having access to that information. And you can think that this is affecting everything from different legislative environments where GDPR might apply, or other restrictions on sensitive information within the interface. So what I've just done is I've just switched over into Sage CRM, and I want to look at where field security is configured. And what we're going to see is that field security is configured at the field definition layer. It's not actually within the security screens that we've been using so far. So that's important for you to realize, because you might actually start looking for this in the wrong place. But let's actually log on and see where we're going. So you can see I've logged on as the system administrator, and if I just open up the menu, I can switch across into the administration screens. And now I'm going to go into customization. So I'm just going to go into customization, and what I want to look down for is the company. So it's within the primary entities, I need to go and look underneath the company primary entity. And now here I can see straight away the listing of fields for this entity. So on the first screen, we have the field definitions. We can see all types, the information about the definition of the field, including its field type and length and things like that. What I want to look at is the company service level agreement field, and you'll see that there's a button on the far right within the column called field security, that if I look down through here, I see a company SLA, and I can choose the SLA field. It's just at the bottom third of the screen, and if I click that, I've clicked on the edit security button on the right hand side of its row, and I've come in now to see the existing rights for this. Now here you can see, and if you understand where it says the security team that can look at it, the security type that can look at it, is you can see that everyone who has a right to see and edit the company record can also see and edit the company service level agreement. So this field, the service level agreement field, SLA field, is marked clearly as everyone can have read access and everyone can have write access to this field. So how do we go about changing this so that only the support team can edit the SLA field? So here what I can do is I can just click new to add in the new rule that I want to use. So when you come to define a rule for the field level security, you can create a rule and base it on either an individual user, a team, or a security profile. And when you do that, you can see on the, if you remember I cancel this and move back here. So you can see that you can have this allow or deny, allow and deny for whether you want to say that you're reading and writing. So if I go back into new, and so you've got this allow or deny for each of the roles that for each of the actions that you want to take. Now, best practice is to use only the concept of the security profile or team rather than individual users, because you want to do this in the easiest way as possible. And you can get very lost and confused if you start giving individual users specific rights within your system or denying particular users particular rights. So it's much better that you are basing things on roles, which is the concept of the security profile, or the team membership, which is the way in which we look at the way in which the processing is handled on a particular workflow. So you're doing it on the basis of the team, or you're doing it on the basis of the profile. That's the best approach. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the idea of team, because I want to add a rule that insists that only the customer service team should be able to edit this field. So I can just save that. And now I'm in the position of changing what rights that I want to use. Now, I want to allow people to read, everyone to be able to read this information, but I only want the customer service team to be able to do this. So I have to just uncheck a box. So I've just taken off the allow. So I've removed permissions there. I don't need to say deny. I can just remove the allow on there. If I have disabled the allow on the right, it actually says for everyone, you actually then have to have permissive rights for another group. Otherwise, no one would be able to do this. So there's logical dependency, which ensures consistency. If you can't view a field, you can't edit it. But we can see here that that's not the case. Now, if I click continue, it's going to save the changes that I've made. Now, now I'm not going to be making at this stage a particular stage to force in required. You can see that the ability to make this a required field disappears for the everyone, because again, if somebody doesn't have the rights to edit something, that they can't be forced to make this a required field. So there's an intersection between the concept of requirement and the idea of your ability to write into a field. So I'll just click the continue button there. So I'm going to switch now into a different window to look at how, now that I've set up that rule, how different users experience this field level security. And so I'm opening up another window, and here you can see I've got two parallel browser sessions. I'm going to log on in each as a different user. The left-hand side, I'm going to log on as a demo user within the demo data as Susan May. She belongs to the sales team. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to log on as Kylie Ward, and she belongs to the support team. So they are going to have different experiences, and we can see now that they've logged on that they've got their respective initial screen, and we're going to navigate to the same company. In both cases, they're going to open their recent list and navigate to Gatecom. So both selected Gatecom. Note here the field SLA is blank. You can see the SLA within the top box. It's the third field in each of the top boxes, and you can see there it's a blank field. It doesn't have any content. Now, if you remember, we changed the rule so anyone or everyone who can see this record can see this SLA data. So we've changed the rule so everyone can see the SLA, but only the support team members can edit this. So if I click change now, both screens are switched to edit mode, but you can see that I've highlighted the fact that the support team member can actually change the field, but the sales team member on the left-hand side just continues to see a field in read-only. So that's showing you how straightforward it is to be able to set up the field level security. I'm going to go back into the admin screen where we were, and you can see that I'm back here into the admin screens. And now I'm going to consider this idea of a field being made mandatory or required. And the obvious choice now that we're looking at the company is actually the company name field. So if I choose the company name field, you can see that this is the idea of setting this to be a required field. It's just a simple matter of checking the checkbox against the field. So when a field is marked as required, a user must enter a value before saving. It will, if you do leave it blank, that's when you'd see a validation error appearing, and a red asterisk would appear beside the field because it's broken this rule about being a required field. It works at the same form level or same level as validation rules. It doesn't override security. So if you can't see or edit a field, then it's not going to become a required field for that user. So it has to be seen by the user and it has to be edited by the user for that effect to come into place. Okay, let's start to sum up what we've looked at here and try and tie it back to the other lessons about security. So what we've seen previously, if we think about security profiles, we've seen that security profiles, if you look at the top, we've got these, or on the screen on the right hand side of the screen, you've got a security profile for a support manager and a security profile for a sales manager. Each security profile determines for which entity you're working on what are the insert, update, delete rights and the access to that entity. That's at the level of the entity, but suddenly field level security hits the individual fields that they would experience within the screens. So even if a user has update rights for a company on and both in the examples that I gave us, both the security, the profile for the security for the support team member and the sales team member had update rights on the company. So even if the user has update rights via the profile, if they don't have edit rights at the level of the field, then they will not be able to edit that field. So field level security overrides the profile update permissions at the level of the individual field. So that's important to understand, that that's trumps or overrides the level of the field. So if we think about security territories, this is where we are identifying the rights that we have over the particular rows within the system. So territories control which records are visible, but field security controls for those individual records that you might have access to, which fields you can see. So it's down at that granular field level. So you may see a record, but you may not see certain fields within that if they are marked as sensitive, and you're either on the basis of your profile or on the basis of team, you are not allowed to see it. And the point is that you can do it even at the level of the individual. So these are quite independent rights. And again, there is the override that the field level security overrides that sense of what you may think your rights are from a security territory perspective. It has, I've just shown you the interface with the main Sage CRM interface, but this does have an impact everywhere within the system. So we're going to find that field level security affects everything from search list columns. If you're not allowed to see that column, it's not written out. It affects advanced finds. It affects reports. And because it's affecting saved searches, advanced finds, reports, it also has an impact with inside dashboard gadgets as well. And it will even affect, and as I'll mention in a moment, APIs as well. So if read access is denied, the field disappears completely from search results and reporting. And that makes it very, very important for data protection and GDPR work as well. So you can absolutely guarantee that certain fields won't be able to be seen, reported on, exported, unless the user has the appropriate rights to see that data. Now, I mentioned APIs, and this is applicable for all of our APIs. These are all governed by field level security, just as they are governed by the territory rights and profiles. So field security also impacts our SOAP and REST API access, and therefore any of the integrations that may exchange information between Sage CRM and also data exports. If a user can't read a field in the user interface, then they're not going to be able to retrieve it when their user ID is being used via the APIs. So it doesn't matter how you're accessing Sage CRM. If you don't have permissions to do it at the level of the field, then you can't see it when you're trying to select it for a REST query, for example. We need to wrap up now and look at what I want you to take away from this lesson. I don't want us to assume that you can just set things up without any need to test. You should not assume that things work in the way that you want it to work without testing. So you will need to test about the user experience, and there's a certain amount of common mistakes if you forget that field security overrides profile rights. You need to make sure about you're not wanting to make hidden fields mandatory. You can't make things which can't be seen by a user or edited by a user. You can't make them mandatory for that user. You need to consider how this is going to impact the usability of certain reports if certain information is not seen. And you should certainly always, when you're testing your system, when you might set this up, one of the things that people do is that they test as a system administrator, forgetting that the system administrator has a very different user experience from other main profiles. So you need to make sure that you're testing across all of the user profiles and the different security territories. And when it comes to the nature of the data itself, we need to make sure that we're using all of the tools available to us in terms of the field level security, as well as the security associated with the security profiles and territories, because this is all about helping with commercial confidentiality, GDPR, the data minimization, the concept of segregation, that people should only see data based on the appropriateness for their role and the nature of the operational control of the data as well. If people are not given the right information in the screens, they can't make the right decisions about that data. So it's both about getting the balance right. But at the fundamental level, what we've seen here with field level security, it is all about controlling that field visibility, controlling the edit, access, the enforcement of mandatory data. And we remember that we can apply those rules either by choosing at the level of the individual user. That's not a great approach, but rather we should approach generally about the team rules on field level security or profile, and then those changes that we make will affect the entire system, with the security territories deciding what data I can see or a user can see, and security profiles giving you what actions that can be performed, and the field level security, the individual fields that can be seen or edited, whereas the required field tab, that mandatory nature, is what must be completed and included within the data. Everything we've talked about today is going to be part of the video that's going to be edited and made available on the Sage Support and Training YouTube channel. So our previous lessons have been included there. So today is also will be included, and we're going to be taking this on and looking at this again, or moving on from this in our next lesson next week, as we start to understand the way in which we can configure the user general settings, the idea of password policies as well, and finally the way in which we can report and monitor how users are using the system. But as we come to the end of today, let's see if anyone has got any questions. Well, if there are no questions, what I'll do is I'll say thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you at our next lesson. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.